Buzza! My name's Liv. Em, who's usually here, is taking a break from making content, and we are your PsycKicks. Today we're doing listener stories, and if you guys are new to the show, my name's Liv. As I've already said, I'm a psychic medium, and we add a little bit of a twist to the listener stories. So you lovely sidekicks send us your stories in, we read them on the show, and then we tell you what the paranormal happenings or not happenings are of each story. This week's video is dream themed because someone in the comments below a couple weeks ago was like, I need the dream stories. So that's today's theme. It's the dream theme. Are you guys excited? Awesome. Let's get into it. So our first story is titled The Girl in the Striped Shirt and Skirt ? And this story is sent in by Sandra K. Thanks so much for sending in your story, Sandra. Alright, so Sandra says, Hi, Em and Liv. I just wanted to first say that finding you has been a spiritual awakening all in itself. Thanks. Makes a lot of sense. Sorry, and I hope you've been having fun, as much fun as you can with your spiritual awakening. They say, I'm not saying I'm psychic, but at least I know I'm not crazy and have some validation, so thank you. You're welcome. I have several stories that I hope to share with you one day, but for now, I'm going to tell you about the little girl in stripes. Between the ages of 7 and 9, we lived in a house that was 2 stories tall, and me and my brother's room were located upstairs, and my parents' room was located downstairs. In order to get to my room, I had to first walk through my brother's room. On several occasions, when I returned home from school, my light would be on. This happened to the point that I accused my family of messing with me, but no one knew or at least would admit to what was going on. In this house, I had the most problems with sleepwalking. There were several times I woke up in another part of the house or even woke up while sleepwalking itself. The majority of the time, my brother and I both opted to sleep downstairs on the couch. One night, sleeping in the living room, I was awakened to the feeling of someone watching me. When I opened my eyes, a little girl with black shoulder-length hair was standing above me. She was wearing a black and white striped shirt and either jean shorts or a skirt. And I remember this clearly, as I used to have a similar outfit when I was younger, and she looked close to my age. Maybe a little bit younger. She was just looking down at me. Frightened, I shut my eyes and wished her away. When I opened them, she was gone. I thought I was imagining it and got a drink and went back to bed. I never saw her after that, but that memory has been with me ever since. I've always disregarded it as just being a kid with a good imagination, but now I'm starting to think that maybe this was more. Sandra. Okay, Sandra, so when I read your story, you were sitting on the couch in your living room, trying to sleep with your brother. There was a girl in a striped shirt with a skirt on with shoulder-length black hair. This just makes me feel like Matilda, kind of, mixed with like Wednesday Addams, honestly. But I feel like you were seeing a girl when I put my mediumship hat on. Can't talk. It's been a long day. Because on my right hand side, I feel like there was a girl. She was probably like 9 years old. I think that's what you said in your story, that you were like 8 or 9, 7 to 9. Okay. And I feel like she was someone that lived either in the house or in the neighborhood before you moved in. And when you were sleeping, when we're younger, we don't have an ego. So our ego is our socio-cultural perception of how we view the world. It's the way that like society teaches us to view things. So animals and children don't really have an ego. That's why animals are much more perceptive to the spiritual and paranormal, and so are children. And why most children, when they grow up and get older, don't experience like seeing past loved ones or spiritual paranormal activity, things like that, because your ego is set in place by how you learn to view the world around you. So those things are sort of shielded from your perception in a way. So I feel like, yes, you were seeing a girl. She was associated to the house or the neighborhood that your house was in, and she just was like staring at you. And I think the reason you didn't see her after that is because she realized that you saw her and was like, oh, sorry, that's a little awkward, and has moved on. But yeah, I feel like that is the reason that you saw her. Also, another question that I get too, which is, since this whole like video is dream themed, is if you're watching right now and you feel like you're like falling asleep, or like right before you wake up or right before you fall asleep, that sort of like limbo state of consciousness, if you will, if you experience like hearing, feeling, seeing things before you sleep, it's super, super common because, as I just talked about with your ego is also like out of the way. Because when we dream, our brain is like getting ready to have dreams, because the reason you dream is so that your brain can keep working, biologically speaking, because it just doesn't turn off. Otherwise, you're just not alive anymore. But anyways, so that ego, your ego's removed a lot when you're in that limbo state between being awake and being asleep, or being asleep and coming awake, because your brain is getting ready to be in that dream-like subconscious state. So things are a lot more easily perceived if you're in that in-between sleep state. All right, thanks so much, Sandra, for your story. We're going to move on to the next one. All right, our next story is sent in by Sam L., and their story is titled, A Dream I'll Never Forget. Sam says, I've had several dreams that are awesome, but this is just one of them that I will never forget. The dream starts with the backyard of my grandmother's house. Several of my dreams are in her backyard, as I grew up there, but I'm not sure why they're always there. The back of her house is wide open, and she has apple trees and pear trees. But this time, the backyard had turned into essentially the beginning of the ocean, but not quite a beach. It was like the water was already somehow about knee-deep. My uncle passed away in 2006, and we used to have a yearly life celebration for him. In this dream, we were celebrating his life in my grandma's backyard, which was a part of the ocean. And we were in the dark. The night sky was beautiful. Stars were bigger sized than normal and very bright. It was kind of a tiki-themed party, so the water had tiki swim-up bars with torches and tiki string lights and lamps all over the place for lighting. Dude, I wish I could be invited to this dream. It sounds sick. All of the lights except for the torches were individually colored like the rainbow, so as you can imagine, it was a very beautiful scene. In the dream, I just remember standing about knee-deep in the water when I saw these two sea turtles swim up to me. Then they came up and out of the water and turned into two girls with beautiful glowing skin and dark, long braided hair. Each had different styles, and their eyes were bright and beautiful. One of the girls had one green eye and one blue eye, and the other one had two green eyes. They then proceeded to tell me something, but it was almost like time had skipped, and all of a sudden they had turned back into turtles and started swimming away. I then said to them, "Wait, come back!" And they did. I can't quite remember what they were, but I get the feeling that their names were Samina and Aliyah, or something like that. After they told me their names, they turned back into turtles and swam into the ocean. This is one of the most awesome dreams I've ever had. I have, however, had several dreams involving aliens, pressure changes, and what I think to be past lives, and even talking to somebody who may have been an angel or a higher being. I'd love to share them with you if you're interested. Yes, Sam, 100%. You guys are so fun to listen to and talk in ways that make sense to me. Thanks so much, Sam. Sam, let's break apart your dream. Let's break it down. Okay, I know this is weird, but there is like, when I put my mediumship hat on for your dream, Sam, I feel like you have this spirit guide who's associated with the color green. He's masculine presenting. So when it comes to spirit guides, your spirit guides aren't like male or female, not in the way that we would conceptualize it. But as a medium, the only thing I'm doing is channeling energy. And similarly to how someone can be male or female, but have more of like a masculine or feminine presenting energy, that is what I talk about, or what I mean when I say your spirit guide is more masculine or feminine presenting. Your spirit guide, Sam, seems more masculine presenting to me. And it's interesting because he's kind of funny. He has like a quirky sort of personality, someone who like talks in riddles and makes jokes. But so the way he looks isn't necessarily what he looks like, because your spirit guides are just energy. They're not physical beings. Like when I'm talking to a soul, I can say what this person looks like. So when he shows me your spirit guide that he's associated with the color green, that means that he helps you with understanding physicality. But that doesn't make sense to me, because he also says he helps you with these dreams that you have. So your dreams, he says, are like layers. So there's parts of them that are real and parts of them that are subconscious. And when I mean real, I mean like spiritually or paranormally, metaphysically fueled. So in this dream specifically with the sea turtles and the tiki torches, I feel like it's so odd. I'll put like a little link to one of the videos that Em and I did where we talk about like dragons and dreams. I think we talk about dreams or the dream realm, your creative conscious and your subconscious in the video about dragons. So I'll put like a link up here. It's an older video. But your green guide says that in this dream, you were like teetering the border between your creative conscious and your subconscious. So your subconscious is the place where you dream, where your brain runs things, and like biologically speaking, that's where you're learning stuff and how to process emotions and like think like psychology or psychology and like dream stuff, like Freud things. And then your creative conscious is a sort of energetic sphere too that sort of overlays sometimes like a Venn diagram, where you could do like lucid dreaming. So like Albert Einstein was said to have done a lot of his work in a lucid dream state, which means that you can control the dream around you. So for this, your green spirit guide, Sam, is saying that you, when you have these sort of spiritual, subconscious, creative conscious dreams, have like an overlay of those two existences, or like dreamscapes, if you will. So it was happening, but it wasn't happening. It's almost like higher spiritual stuff sort of seeps into it, but in a very like grounded way. So I don't think you're like astral projecting to different realms or things like that, but other things are able to seep in. That is the way that your spirit guide, who's green, or associates themselves with the color green, explains it to me. But that's so weird because he's laughing. Like I said, green means that he helps you understand the physical world. But he says that there's a lot of overlays between the physical world and the spiritual world, hence why he helps you with your dreams and understanding the physical world, because there's that overlay between like separation is an illusion. A lot of things in the physical world mirror or have to do with the spiritual world. So that's why he helps you with both. Anyways, I hope that explains your dream a little bit. I know that was a lot to take in like a crash course, but if you have questions, make sure to put them in the comments below, because it's exciting. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next story. All right, let's go. Okay, so our next story is by Tom H. Thank you, Tom, for sending in your story. The title of Tom's story is Shared Sleep Paralysis Entity. Okay, so Tom says, when I was beginning my life in college, I was also exploring some light ghost hunting and metaphysical things. I was the YouTuber witch wannabe that followed the instructions on seeing auras from any YouTuber that seemed to know what to do and was down to earth. I got to a point where I could see many colors around people and trees. Sometimes on white walls, I would get both shapes and colors. And I also started seeing these things that I called sparks. Not fully sure what they are or if they are metaphysically related. If you have any ideas, I would love to know what they are. These sparks are almost like the spots you see when you experience vertigo, but I also only see one spark and the color doesn't always stay the same. Okay, we're going to talk about the sparks when we break it down. Okay. Tom says, while I was exploring and being open to these things, I also noticed I was experiencing strange things when sleeping. It started pretty light. My first semester, I started experiencing this thing where my roommate, who I had just met and never got very close with, and I would have conversations in our sleep. I remember there would be many times when I would wake up to him finishing the sentence that he started in my dream. I would then ask or say something to see if he was awake, but he would always be passed out. Jump to my second year. I got to share a room with a good friend of mine. He was also open to metaphysical things, and I think he introduced me to the term sleep paralysis. He would joke about how he would experience growling blankets when he was experiencing sleep paralysis. He was also part of our small ghost hunting group. I experienced a few things while rooming with him. The first was Jonathan. One night while trying to fall asleep on my loft bed, I had the strong sense that someone was standing in the doorway inside our room. I got pretty freaked out by this, and I kept my head tucked under the covers and never looked. But I quickly got the name Jonathan in my head. The story about him that popped into my head is always the same when I think about him. He was/is a janitor that likes to check on students that live in the dorms. He never felt mean, and as soon as the name and who he was and what he was doing popped in, I was calm and fell asleep. I think when I was in that dorm, I sensed him there a few times. But one night, I had fallen asleep and was experiencing sleep paralysis. I was aware that I was asleep in my loft bed, but I couldn't move my body. There was something trying to pull me off my loft bed. I couldn't see it, but I was able to turn my body to the point where I had my back against the wall and my feet were hanging off the other side of the bed. I remember at this point, it was like it was struggling to pull me off the bed. Then, whatever it was, stopped pulling and shot under the dorm room. Once it hit the door, I woke up staring right at the bottom of our door where whatever it was had shot into. I was new to sleep paralysis and had never before experienced something like this. And the moment after I woke up, I didn't really think much of it and just rolled over to try to go back to sleep. Unfortunately, after rolling over, I started to hear these deep grunting moans coming from my roommate. Then, all of a sudden, he shot up and woke awake. I hesitantly asked, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, did you hear me screaming?" And I giggled and said, "I heard something." He then said that he was dreaming of being in his bed and there was a super creepy little girl giggling at the foot of it, but he couldn't see her. For reference, our small rectangular room was set up mirroring each other. My side was the right and his was the left. Our bed heads were at the far side of the room in the corners next to the windows, and the foot of our beds were by the door side of the room. So he had experienced something he couldn't see that was in the same place that I was experiencing something that I couldn't see. A few weeks later, we experienced this again. In my dream, I was asleep in my loft when something fully pulled me out of my lofted bed to the middle of the floor and was slowly pulling me out the door. Along with not being able to move my body during the sleep paralysis, I was not able to talk or scream while this was all happening. All I could get out were soft, faint cries to my roommate in hopes that he would wake up and help me. When I was getting pulled closer to the door, I could hear my roommate start to wake up. He then kept saying things like, "This isn't real. There's no way. What's going on?" And he was climbing out of his bed. The second his foot touched the ground of our dorm room, I woke back up in my bed, staring directly at the bottom of our door again. The following morning, I quickly found out that my roommate had experienced the same creepy giggling girl again in his dream. If this makes it to your show or gives you vibes, I would love to hear your thoughts on as to what you think. Seeing sparks, ghost janitors, and creepy invisible kids definitely wasn't what I was expecting college to be like. Tom. Oh, Tom, I love your story. It's great. All right, let's break it down. Okay, getting comfy. So, Tom, the sparks. Now, just to give everyone like a scientific reference, there is, I forget what it's called. I know one thing is when you close your eyes and you see like the little white dots that are like floating around behind your eyelids, that's actually like, I know this is weird, but dead cells floating around in the like jelly of your eyes that you're seeing. So if that's something you're experiencing, it's probably not paranormal or metaphysical. There's also another experience though too where you can see like pops of like light, kind of like what Tom is experiencing. But it's a little bit different. I don't remember the name. If I remember it, I'll put it down in the description below, or if I'm able to find it again. But it's where you see like certain like pops of color too. So always, if you're experiencing weird things like that or like ringing in your ear, make sure it's not tinnitus. Make sure you're not just seeing like dead jelly ball cells in your eyes and get all freaked out about it. But if it is paranormal, like I believe it is in Tom's case, this is interesting. So the way I interpret your sparks, Tom, is because you said you were talking to like, or seeing the auras of trees and things like that. When I see fae or fae beings that are related to nature spirits, specifically trees and plants, things like that, I always perceive them as like little pops of color and you can see them singularly or as like a group. So that is one of the ways that I clairvoyantly perceive fae beings, and I think that's what you were doing. So anyways, moving on to the janitor. The janitor one's pretty cut and dry. I agree with you on that. I feel like there was a janitor or someone who was associated with the dorm that you lived in specifically that was checking the students and making sure that everything was okay, which is I guess, weird to say that it's normal, but I also attended a school that was haunted, and one of the people who had a building named after them, she and I were like tight, kind of, when I was feeling like really sad or, you know, college is hard. So oftentimes I would go to the building that was named after her, which was like one of our really pretty music halls, and not a lot of people went in there anyways. And I would just like sit and try to do some work and just like talk to her in my head a little bit. So it was always comforting. But that is kind of what I perceive for the janitor soul in your school, which is, it's always nice to have someone that's kind of got your back watching your six. Okay, so sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis makes me so like creeped out, you know, because I feel like it can be paranormal, but I also feel like it can be just like normal biological things, because a lot of people make readings with me, and I mean, I don't want to say a lot of people, but a large handful of people make readings with me, and one of the questions, or a lot of the questions that they want to ask, is about sleep paralysis, and it's not always paranormal. So when it comes to sleep paralysis, it can be biologically fueled, not always paranormal. Reasons that cause, or things that cause sleep paralysis are, and if you're in college, you're probably going through, most likely, bad sleep habits or really bad sleep patterns. So like not going to bed at the same time every night, long stretches where you're like staying awake for a long time, even if you work like a really odd shift, like swing shifts or evening hours and then morning hours, and then going back and forth to where like your schedule is always wonky, being super sleep deprived, things like that. Those are things that cause sleep paralysis. However, I feel like in addition to being subjected to those things in your environment, you also can have, spiritual things happening too. So the fact, I forgot, the fact that you and your first roommate, your first year, were like finishing each other's sentences in dreams. So we just talked about this in like the last video, I think, or the video before. So you have your subconscious and then you have your creative conscious. Think of like your dreamscapes as these sort of like energetic bubbles where your brain frequencies can reside, basically, in like a really, really, really watered down metaphysical way. So you have like one energy field and then the other energy field. I feel like you and your first year roommates' subconscious like energy fields were just like woo 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 woo, like cross-firing into each other. So you guys were like in each other's dreams, for lack of a better word. But when it comes to your sleep paralysis stuff, I feel like you and your second year roommate, the one that you were friends with, were being just a part of the physical aspects of sleep paralysis, but you both were doing metaphysical things. And if you live in a place where there's a lot of people, so like apartment complexes, dormitories, there is going to be a lot of energy being drawn in because there's so many people. So people's fears, people's ambitions, people's insecurities, those types of energies are going to bring in the lower vibrational things. So if you're sleep deprived and super susceptible to having sleep paralysis in the first place, and those negative entities are drawn in because you're living in a large community with close proximity of people, those things are going to be like, this is like the little C's, what is it? Cece's? Not Little Caesars. Cece's Pizza Buffet of negative energy, and I'm going to come in to your sleep paralysis dreams and make you super, super scared. And that is what I believe you were experiencing, Tom. So, yeah, that's my explanations for your stories as a medium. I hope you guys enjoyed this listener story. I'm sorry it's a little bit short. I'm not necessarily on vacation. I'm in like a working vacation, hence why the background looks different. I tried to zhuzh it up as much as I could, but I want to make sure I still get content out for you guys no matter what. So that was the game plan for today. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys are interested in submitting your own listener story, there will be a link down in the description below. Please, no detail is too much detail. I enjoy reading your listener stories. And if you guys just want to like get the stuff out of your head because you feel better, like one of the listeners in today's episodes talked about, of like not feeling crazy and just sharing it with someone that's willing to listen, I got you. I'll be that person. I'll listen to your stories. I don't have to share them. But yeah, anyways, if you guys are excited for next week's video, let me know. But until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. And we are your PsycKicks. Peace.